Hi, I'm Tom Peters. As many of you know, I've spent much of my time searching for excellence in the corporate world, the so-called private sector. Now, I invite you to join me on a journey through another vital area that touches all of us, the public sector, the world of government, federal agencies, municipal departments, and nonprofit organizations. In the next hour, we'll meet people and organizations overcoming obstacles almost as old as these ponderosa pines. Their achievements, and more important, their spirit and their energy, dispel for good our notions of bureaucratic inefficiency and complacency. These people have visions, they set goals, they constantly seek customer feedback, they beat budgets and pursue innovations with zeal. Our search led us to organizations responsible for the defense of the nation and to people providing services vital to our daily well-being. Is there excellence in the public sector? You bet there is. We'll find it here in the Ochoco National Forest, and we'll encounter it at the Alameda Naval Air Depot in California, in New York City's Department of Juvenile Justice, and at the National Theater Workshop of the Handicapped. Also throughout the various municipal agencies of Phoenix, Arizona. These are examples of innovation, management transformation, and achievement. Stories of men and women committed to excellence in promoting the common good. We've all heard the tales of waste and mismanagement in our Department of Defense. What we haven't heard is that a bureaucracy-bashing revolution is underway. It's no longer management by the book. And in fact, the book has been rewritten and in some cases literally thrown out by people like Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Bob Stone.
We have a one-page directive on installation management that says how our installations are supposed to run. And the key element, the key word here is the commanding officer of an installation is responsible for accomplishing the mission and should be delegated broad authority to decide how best to accomplish that mission.
And you're basically saying that that's a rather revolutionary idea.
Military people have known for thousands of years that that's how they had to operate in wartime. But applying this to the peacetime operations of the Defense Department is revolutionary.
The Naval Aviation Depot at Alameda provides responsive maintenance, engineering, and logistic services in support of our national defense. Well, that's the official mission statement. In simple language, Alameda overhauls planes, engines, and missiles to the tune of $383 million each year. Several years ago, this depot was losing $1 million each week. What helped turn it around? A simple one-page memo from the Department of Defense establishing the Model Installations Program. Today, Alameda has changed its tune. This place is humming, and you can feel it.
88 overall was an outstanding year. We performed the same amount of workload in fiscal year 88 as we did in 87 for $40 million less than the 87 numbers. The P3 program...
I hearken back to a period in 1973 when we lost about 1 out of every 6 of our workforce. It was very demoralizing. I used to hide in the bathroom when they went through the performance review aspects of our programs because it was an embarrassment and it was hard to swallow.
Well, Dean, listen, 6 years ago, what was this place like to work in, and what happened?
The thing that happened, I think, is that the closure threat came upon us, and rather than reacting in the traditional way of kind of keeping it a secret, we put the word out to our workforce, and we started heavily into the communication business with what was happening to us and why, and what we needed to do. As an example, we moved from 6th, and a lot of people said that we were 8th out of 6th, to number 2 in a matter of 2 quarters.
Good heavens, in 6 months? 180 days?
180 days.
And this is on budgetary measures or output measures?
Output measures, productivity, quality, cost, the whole 9 yards.
Good heavens. What were some of the first kinds of really specific things that you guys did who were leading the place that opened that kind of again, Pandora's box of opportunity?
We did a lot in terms of walk-arounds. The commanding officer goes around once each quarter and tells it like it is. And it's no longer the sheltering of information or the non-sharing. It's good news, and if it's bad news, it's...
And that's a contrast to the
exactly.
past.
We are being tasked daily to think of what we do as a business. Basically, that's where I am. I'm like a little CEO of my business. My business is the P3 program. And I'm the guy that's sitting at the top, calling the shots and coordinating to see that my business make money. If my business doesn't make money, I'm going to be looking at the stock shareholders.
If we find a regulation that we think is an impediment to our productivity, we can go right to the top and gain permission to avoid that regulation.
There's not a lot of praise in the Congress for getting rid of rule books. We got rid of this 400-page book and replaced it with this little pocket-sized manual, which turns out to be all the guidance that's
Literally.
that's
This,
needed.
this thing, I
Literally.
mean, this does not officially exist
That does not
anymore,
officially exist
and
anymore.
this does.
Actually, we had as a sop to the traditionalists, we had to reprint this on 8.5 by 11 paper.
Get that expensive. Meet Rob Mixon, who runs the paint shop.
Real simple philosophy. Let the people know, hey, whatever we can do to make money, which is the bottom line, let's make money. Let's not sacrifice quality. Let's do it. And let the people have the input. And you'd be surprised at how many creative ideas come out of young minds when they just let free. And when the guys come to us and say, hey, let's try this because we think it's a better way, we don't sit back and say, well, we don't think it's a good idea because it's not our idea. We say, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. We are in business. So what we did is we got with the foreman, and I sat him down and I said, look, guys, real simple. That shop over there, that's your business. Those people that work for you, they're your stockholders.
Roughly 2 years ago, the agency put what they call aircraft examiners in 93000 Division. And their primary responsibility is to control the depth of rework. And otherwise, if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. 2 years ago, before E&E was in place in 3000, everything was overhauled 100% whether they needed it or not. We convinced management if they did put examiners in this area that we would more than pay for our gross annual income by the cutting back on the rework of the component. You got these arms here and these linkages. You have the hydraulic tubing. You have this plate. And you've got this linkage over here. They were not processed. The reason they weren't processed is because there was no need to process them. And now that we've got E&E in 93000, we're probably saving this agency $1 million a year just in unnecessary processing of the components.
The call for accountability has increased. As our federal resources have decreased, I think taxpayer is more interested in where his dollars are going. And that permeates all the way down from Washington down to our lowest level of organization here.
Roller masking tape, what does it cost? All right, you figure you go out and buy 1 inch, costs maybe $1.29 at your local hardware store. Well, that's not a cost 2 years ago because the guys just took it for granted that it was here. Now we're saying, hey, that cost goes toward this product, guys. Remember, you're buying it. You're the stockholder. You're buying this, okay? Do you want to waste your 1 inch tape because it's half gone and you don't feel like going to get another roll? You're going to throw it away. They don't do that anymore.
The attention to detail means savings ranging from pennies to millions of dollars.
We've taken the new nose and spliced it to the aircraft. So we've done is taken a wrecked aircraft and made a good one out of 2 airplanes. To replace the aircraft would be up around $30 million, and we fixed it for about $1.5 million.
That adage, it's good enough for government, irritates the life out of me. I think it's close enough for government work and it's good enough for government is a big bunch of bull.
It's not just a question of cost savings. Somebody has to fly these planes.
The people that we know personally know us, and they're not going to give us an airplane that they're concerned about are not making it back. So, you know, it's just there's that personal input.
Alameda's customers include the aircraft carriers that protect the nation.
The warranty that NADAP provides for us comes from their professional approach to doing business.
Break and we'll be ready for steam. That's correct. Okay. Well, thanks for your efforts. We certainly appreciate your work, keeping us alive and well, and keeping the airplanes going off the front of the ship. That's all right. Okay. Thanks, fellas. These are our regular.
People want to do their job the best way they know how. They want to do what they want to do. And if you give them authority to do their work the way they want to do it, they respond with enthusiasm and creativity, and they do 4 times as much, 4 times better. And it doesn't have anything to do with what you're paying them. I mean, they get a fair paycheck. But what they really want to do is they want to be in charge of their world.
The Department of Defense is learning that production efficiency is tied to the transferring of authority, to making sure that people on the line are in charge of their world. It really works at the Alameda Naval Aviation Depot. Now let me tell you about another outfit in a very different world that has been transformed by this principle. They have defined the purpose of their organization so that each employee knows specifically how their work relates to the overall mission. This is Spofford, the Central Secure Detention Facility of the Department of Juvenile Justice of the City of New York, commonly called DJJ. Its purpose? To house youngsters who are charged with serious offenses and awaiting court hearings. At any one time, Spofford is responsible for approximately 200 youngsters. Their stay varies from a couple of weeks to several months.
This is a detention facility. The children can't get anything in here unless we give it to them. When they walk into Spofford and those doors lock behind them, they're in our hands. And we have a responsibility to make sure that they are safe, make sure that they are getting quality services. Never mind that they happen to be in a detention facility.
Well, 6 years ago, DJJ was in the midst of enormous upheaval.
There were 27 directors in 25 years. People were into their own turfs.
It was a sense of being a battered agency.
The building was in disarray. It was a pig pen, and you could cut the tension with a knife.
And yet, there were people doing a job there every single day. People were caring. People were trying to do their best. Morale was very low. Then Ellen came in. She started from a place where there were good people who needed the tools to get the job done. She gave them the tools, and she got out of the way.
Building an agenda and sort of developing a mission has to really be in a conversation with your staff. It doesn't work, I don't think, and doesn't outlast you if it's something that's just yours. So I think the success of our use of mission is because it was based on the best of the work of the staff that had been here.
You have to be able to set up, as Ellen has, the atmosphere to make change. But it's not enough just to care. You've got to do more. You've got to be able to care. You've got to be able to have ideas. You've got to be able to have vision. But you got to be able to get the job done.
On some level, I guess our job is to find something to substitute for the profit motive. A lot of it is found in people's own values. That they come to this work because they care about our mission.
She understands that you've got to get the best people for certain jobs so that you can make it move forward. She got Rose Washington.
Rose is remarkable, I think, because she combines a really tough approach to management with an extraordinary ability to lead staff.
My role is to empower the staff. The staff have a lot of answers within themselves.
But what are they really doing for me?
Spofford is a business. Just as IBM and Procter & Gamble have products, we have products. The kids are our product. And staff are held accountable, just as managers are held accountable in private industry.
I think that the citizens imagine that the private sector is all about risks and research and development and going out on a long limb, and that they somehow want the behavior to be the same in the public sector, but they're not as happy with failures, and the inherent in taking risks is accepting failures. So managers need to be able to find some way to sort of create some protective space in which staff can take risks and survive.
You allow me to grow, you allow me to enter areas,
Right.
you open doors, and
Right.
say, you gave me opportunities to go to different training seminars.
And ultimately, I think I try to model the behavior I want to see. And so I take risks myself. And I try to take them in a careful enough way that I can defend my choices.
Okay, and then go back to school. I spend a lot of time out in the institution talking to the staff and saying you're doing a good job.
Her office is here on the 3rd floor. She's in the midst of everything that goes on here within the agency. She makes herself available to her staff. She's approachable by the kids. She listens, she's concerned, and she's for real.
So we've just decided that we would be clear about our mission, and our mission would be both custody and care, and we would forge the two.
The City of New York requires the Department of Juvenile Justice to operate both secure as well as non-secure detention facilities. But at DJJ, that's not enough. Aftercare follows the offenders back to their neighborhoods and gives them the support they need to stay on track. Today, it's helping over 1,000 youngsters.
He helped me a lot. He helped me get into school. He's been helping my family with the papers that I need, you know, like Medicaid for health and stuff like that, and Social Security.
Typical of those being helped by Aftercare is Joseph, a young man charged with a serious crime. His life made even more difficult by the recent death of both of his parents.
Getting a kid off the streets and putting it that way is just not the issue. The issue is getting him back into school, putting him back into mainstream, and helping make that adjustment, you know, to be more productive.
When we started, we had a dream that we would develop aftercare so that there were more kids on any day in aftercare than there were in detention. And we reached that probably a year or so ago. And that one thing probably symbolizes the biggest turnaround for DJJ.
Tell me about you, and here you're confronted with this task that nobody but an idiot would take on. And what do you? Yeah, which maybe that's the answer we're looking for.
Right.
But what do you do on minute 1, minute 2? I mean, how do you start with this hill that's a, you know, straight up?
I think you have to get in your head that it's a long hill, right? That revitalization takes a long time, and that you have to be in it for the long haul.
But how do we get people to want to make that investment? How do we change the incentive system around, or whatever it is?
Well, I think we have to change the stories. We have to change the models for heroes. We have to tell a different story, that if you want to take on broad-scale change, you need to stay long enough, and people who do can succeed.
Now, you've done this in a context that is not really manageable, but at least it's not the whole planet. Is this a replicable process? Would you do the same things in some respects, or is there limits to what can be done?
I think all the learnings about leadership and management that we've achieved in these last 6 years are transferable to any organization.
So you wouldn't try to rewrite your management book. You'd adapt. But if you were now Assistant Secretary of Labor responsible for Lord knows what an Assistant Secretary of Labor is responsible for,
you'd start out asking questions, learning the culture, supporting your staff. Those things
seeking
work.
the small wins still?
Seeking the small wins. Those things work everywhere. We very much have the notion that the change is top-down and bottom-up, that it doesn't work if it's just top-down. So you have to get the people on the line involved, and I think that's where our sense of mission worked. We realized early on that we couldn't get staff to care about kids until staff felt cared about themselves. And so we have been about trying to find ways to appreciate staff's work, to celebrate the small wins as they come along. We very much believe in not waiting till the end, because if you wait to celebrate till the end, it just delays getting to the end. Marion Richardson.
Marion pulls all the paperwork together.
We really celebrate the small wins. We acknowledge that they can be small, but they're still very important. And so it makes it easy to talk about the failures if you can also talk about the successes and really celebrate them.
And this is great. That's what you're here for. You're here to do above and beyond the call of duty, but you don't expect a reward for something that you're supposed to be doing. It's lovely. It's wonderful.
We do and should demand a great deal of our cities. And DJJ has responded in an extraordinary manner as it deals with one of the thorniest of urban problems. All cities, in fact, are faced with expectations that stretch the energies and managerial skills of those for whom each citizen must truly be regarded as an important customer.
Channel 7 EMS assignment, unconscious man, 1411 West 6th Street, engine 5.
Okay, the man is unconscious. You can't tell if he's breathing or not. Calm down, sir. It's all right. We have the paramedics on the way. I've started them out there. I want you to stay on the line and talk to our medic, okay? He's going to tell you what to do until we get there to help you out.
Okay, we're going to have to start some CPR. I'm going to tell you how to do it, okay? Sir, listen. Yeah, you're real excited, and it's hard to understand you. Okay, now you're going to have to pinch off his nose and seal your mouth over his, and you're going to breathe into his lungs. I want you to seal your... Okay, the fire trucks have got there? Okay, they'll take care of him. Thank you.
A 5-minute average ambulance response time in a sprawling million-person urban center. 4 times better than the private services. A citizen called and instantly the city was involved. We expect our cities to be responsive, to take care of basic services like medical emergencies, police, fire, roads, and garbage. We are the customer. We pay for these services with our hard-earned tax dollars, and we expect that those dollars will be spent wisely.
I think that if you look at a public sector fire department, the stockholders are the citizens. We work for the citizens who receive that service. We translate what would in the private sector would be profits into service delivery.
The customer is the voter in the public sector, and so if you don't satisfy those folks, obviously your whole corporate strategy is going out.
We have to make sure that our people are thinking about each contact with the public as being the event that's going to determine that person's view of how well the city services are performed.
Okay, well, I appreciate the information. The connection that we have to the customers is that we have the feeling in the public sector that we very directly relate and work for the citizens. That's what we do. I think any company, any organization who's delivering service can learn from that.
There's a real desire to run the city like a business. And in that way, we have a real competitive spirit to reduce costs and become efficient.
Just last week, some employees received an award for developing a new way to pave streets that's going to save us a little over $1 million a year.
Well, this particular major idea came out of a couple of engineers who up to this point in time recognized the city was using national standards as far as street paving thickness. And they felt that the climate, the nature of the soils here might require us to take a real in-depth look at our paving standards. And they did some calculations which allowed us to do 1 inch less of pavement per mile of streets that we construct each year. And 1 inch translates to over $50,000 a mile. So we're talking about $1.2 million in savings just through that one employee suggestion alone.
The citizens of Phoenix get quality customer services and save tax dollars at the same time. It's a formula that customers test every day on every road.
And I'm really amazed at the quality of ideas we do get, because people, they're going to sit down and spend enough time to generate some kind of a thought. It tends to be something that's going to make their job easier or really have some usefulness in the workplace. We've had at least a couple of situations in the past few years, people have actually recommended the elimination of their job.
That's wonderful. Yeah. What did you do?
We, in fact, eliminated that position at the end of the fiscal year, but we made a commitment to that employee. He wasn't going to lose his rights to the city, and so we found another position for that particular person.
That's incredible.
The city customers seldom let you know when you're doing things right, but they always let you know when you're doing them wrong. And one of the tricks, I think, that we've learned is to not only have the elected officials out there on the firing line when people are complaining, but to take along with us the senior management staff so that they have to answer the questions from the woman who's mad because her garbage didn't get picked up or her street hasn't been fixed.
It's not glamorous, but it's the essence of city service. And we expect someone to do it, and to do it right. The Department of Public Works competes with the private sector for sanitation service contracts. Not so long ago, it had lost almost half of its business in a free and open bidding process. But instead of pulling in their horns, the DPW went back to work with a vengeance. Today, in a Cinderella comeback, they've recaptured almost the entire city. In fact, efficient garbage collection has become a hallmark of Phoenix's city services. The key to getting the job done right, getting employees excited and involved in what they do.
Well, I think that if you want employees to be a part of the team, you can't have the boss who is the strong boss and everybody else is kind of the slave to the boss. It's got to be part of the team. You have to be equal. One thing that I strive to achieve in our department is that people in green uniforms are real people. We're all people, and we're working together.
When one person walks up to the foreman and says, I don't like the way this thing is, we get in trouble with it. That's only one person. When we get a partnership team together, we have 5 or 6 people that say to management, we have a problem, we need it fixed, and we need to do something with it.
In the private sector, they're called quality circles. In Phoenix, they're called partnership teams. Whatever they're called, they're designed to involve employees and to get results.
Hose is entangled, hose is damaged and dragged across concrete.
A simple problem like tangled hoses used for cleaning DPW trucks frustrated workers. The F-Troop partnership team came up with the solution.
Our group decided the best way to alleviate these problems would be to elevate the hoses up off the ground using a boom assembly very similar to this. The operator is able to work 360 degrees all the way around the vehicle unobstructed. As he walks back over, the boom is spring-loaded. It will swing back out of the way.
The thoroughness of F-Troop's research convinced management of the value of the proposal. It was adopted, and it's working.
Bill, I've got a question. I think you've got an excellent presentation here. You guys have put a lot of time and effort into it. Have you thought about maybe getting a patent on it? Maybe you guys could go into the wash boom construction business on your own time.
Isn't there some city rules say we can't do this?
If you develop something on city time, we have the right to use it. But that doesn't mean any one of our employees or groups of employees couldn't go outside and develop it. It's their idea, they created it. We own a part of it. But then I think there's the opportunity for our employees to get into other fields of endeavor, and I think it's good and challenging to do that.
It doesn't feel just like another management trick to see if they can twist your tail for more productivity.
No, it doesn't.
So Richard, basically in these in the projects and the like, it's you guys are you're the quarterbacks, if you will, throughout the whole process.
So we do all the work before we give this to management.
Mm-hmm. They're supporting you as teams. I mean, it's as opposed to the accountants running the show. You call them and you say, this is Richard and F-Troop's working on this project, and can you help us?
Right, and could you give us some input?
Mm-hmm.
And they will do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think one important lesson, at least directly through the suggestion program, is that we just can't look at the previous way we've done things. We have to take a look at the new procedures, but more importantly, we have to look at the employee as a real source of this information.
Yeah, you use that word partnership a lot. I mean, it really feels like a group of guys who are going after.
Yeah, you're doing something, and that's the way I feel. I think that's the way they feel. You've done something to improve what that was not there at first. Now it's better.
Mm-hmm.
And the other employees, in fact, for the city itself, this project improved it.
Mm-hmm. And then the citizen wins in the long run.
Right, they do.
I think if you talk to employees, and again, I don't want to repeat what's kind of a common accepted practice, and find out...
Wish it were.
Yeah, right, yeah. And find out, what motivates them, what makes them tick. I think, I'm not saying you can run the organization based on their attitudes, but it gives you a real clue in terms of where some areas of improvement can be made and where to focus your attention. So I think this whole philosophy of management by wandering around is really critical to success. Cost savings is an end result of employees getting involved, being participative, being competitive. It comes out in the bottom line. People need to enjoy their work. When they enjoy their work, they'll do a better job, and on a long-term basis, the results will be cost savings.
Phoenix is truly serving its customers. The citizens say it's providing the services they expect. And the reason? The city's management realizes that its frontline employees are the essence of city service excellence. Thus far, we've looked at government outfits. There's another important class of organization that serves the common good. It's the nonprofit or independent sector, a vital part of American life. The challenges faced by those in the independent sector are unique. Whereas government organizations, like the ones we just visited, are frequently crippled by large bureaucracy, the problems of thousands of nonprofits often revolve around a lack of resources. The challenge is often simply one of survival itself.
I'm going to try to send all of you to the audition, but, and this is something that we've been talking about for a long time, we got to get it done. We need your 8.5 by 10 glossies, all right? You got it, Maria? Okay, terrific. Oh, Maria, it's great.
And I want to thank you for that lead on the commercial. I think I got it.
No! Congratulations! Oh, great news. Oh.
Yes, it's a great start. I'm thrilled.
Oh, God. Now we have to get a copy of it.
And even though we process more than 1 million bank statements every month, we still take the time to make sure Maria can read hers. That's the Wachovia way.
I don't want to work in no more laundry room. I don't want to pick up there another broom. One of these days, just want to sleep till noon, cleaning women without faces, coming and going on Thursdays, places. You're talking to
Many times the ideas that I have are just not within our budget range, and so realistically I pull back and try to make the dreams and the vision that we have very realistic. We've never had a bill we couldn't pay. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is you can't expand as quickly as you would like. But year by year, we've enhanced our budget every year, and we've shown very gradual growth. And that seems to have ensured the sustenance of our theater.
I bring in people like you. People won't like it. Think of the changes. We'd have to buy chairs, and we'd need chairs all over the place just in case you want to sit down.
Well, the fear is that if the first disabled student, the first disabled actor that works in a particular audition, if it doesn't work out with a particular agency, they'll say, oh no, we've tried the blind, it didn't work out.
Right.
Or we tried somebody in a wheelchair and they were just impossible, and then all of a sudden, that's the thing that was interesting, because what you said the other day at the roundtable discussion is that it's very important for us to remember that we're role models, and that we have to make it very easy for the next generation coming up. As a founder of an organization, you certainly can begin an organization on a sense of charism, sense of enthusiasm, sense of salesmanship. But if I were to drop dead tomorrow, I wanted to be certain that the organization was going to continue on without me. So I wanted to ensure longevity by giving the organization a charter, a board, and a corporate status. I got a board from the business world. They don't know anything about theater, and they don't know anything about particular theater training for the disabled. What they know is business, and they've taught me to sell.
Rob, let me ask you to play distinguished guru, if you will, for a moment. You've had some remarkable success as a board chairman and helping the organization move into really an established pattern. What can you advise other people who are involved or thinking about being involved in the not-for-profit sector?
A major consideration is self-definition of the organization and the organization's mission. Sounds like it's lifted from a bad business text, but by the same token, it's quite accurate. Too many not-for-profits are unfocused in just that communication element and that organizational element.
Should be pleased at having trebled our annual budget, but we were still a very small organization.
The chairman of my board is a salesman, and he says you can't go to bed at night and rest your head peacefully on the pillow unless you've asked somebody for money that day, or set up an appointment to ask them for money the next day. he said you have to ask 10 times for every time you've said yes to. So if you don't make 10 calls during a day, you're not going to have a funding source the following day. So it's always, always push, ask, sell. Push, ask, sell.
Or I thought about, and because they're a large corporation, nationally known, I'd say go for a national project rather than a small local one.
Well, Texaco has a fabulous track history for the Metropolitan Opera. Maybe Texaco would be interested in sponsoring a national playwriting contest. I'm really grateful that you gave me the time to see me. You look very closely, first of all, what the track history is of the foundation that you're going to. What have they funded in the past? Because you're not going to break any new ground with foundations. They have their guidelines have been very clearly set up, and their trustees have to maintain those guidelines. That would be along with Texaco's idea of not only funding cultural, but also funding an educational cultural venture. I look at the organization, I look at the person across the desk, and I say to myself, is this a corporate head who likes business talk? Is there someone who would like to hear about the fact that I understand this because I was born with one arm? Is there somebody who would be charmed by the fact that we have celebrities working with us? Would they like to hear a success story about one of our students? All of those things are involved. And so what it really is I come down to being a psychologist, is I try to intuit how I can get that person to listen, break the barriers down, and get them to truly hear about our theater. What Texaco should choose here is a play that's going to live. See, we have a huge empty shelf called disability dramatic literature. And I think it's time that we started filling that shelf in. I think we're ready. We know how Texaco can benefit NTWH. We know that they can give us money. But how creatively can I figure out how we can benefit that organization? So it's a real process of learning how to scratch each other's backs. Because if we really have nothing to offer Texaco, we're not going to be funded by Texaco.
What's the connection with Texaco? And to be quite honest, what visibility would we receive from it, or what would we get back?
No one ever thought that a disabled person could be a major contributing factor to society. So if, in fact, you can tell a story about how a blind person operates, how an orthopedically disabled person operates, how disabled people with different disabilities relate to each other, the minute that you have somebody that says, oh, I've never thought of that before, that's great, because that's what our organization is about.
It's not what I expected.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, everybody has their preconceived ideas about things.
Yeah.
And some of the things you were talking about sparked something saying, I never thought of it that way.
I hope it keeps getting sparked.
Good.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Look, heaven help us if Brother Curry were run over by a bus as we sat here. Would the National Theater Workshop continue, thrive, move forward, disappear?
I think were that event to take place, I, as chairman of the board, would interview primarily in the artistic community for a replacement.
But there's such energy there. I mean, it's, yeah.
He's a killer. He's wonderful. He really is.
But you really think it's reached the point where nonetheless it's sustainable?
I'd ask the bus driver to wait a couple of years, if that's at all possible. No.
Come out right after Peggy, like you did the last time, and get tight. Zen, don't forget to get in there tight, okay? And you have the direction just to turn your face slightly to the right, and then when Peggy comes to the... Now remember that this group, never any role models. They did it on their own. These are the pioneers. These are the students who had the struggle. These were the overachievers. Now, younger disabled kids are seeing that this can be done, and we're going to get many more people into the arts because this crowd was the crowd that broke the ground. So I think we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg.
Talk about the habitat needs of wildlife, but I suspect that human beings have habitat needs, and some of us find that this kind of habitat fits our needs best.
This is the Ochako National Forest in Central Oregon. And here, the men and women of the National Forest Service, which is part of the Department of Agriculture, manage our natural resources. Management means conservation and development of timber and grassland assets. The government's attempts to balance these two at times conflicting objectives resulted at first in useful regulations, but then they became volumes of regulations that lost their usefulness and until recently presented real roadblocks to risk-taking and employee innovation, and then ultimately the service to the customer. That is, to you and me, who benefit from both the conservation and the development of these precious resources. The mission of the National Forest goes well beyond the time-honored protection of our national lands. Its task includes the management of vast recreational areas, grazing pastures, and enormous timber resources.
One of the things that we've had to adjust to is that when we were managing the forest and we thought that we were managing it our way, we considered it was our national forest. And one thing we've had to learn is we have to change our language and our thoughts a little bit. And it's not our national forest, it's your national forest.
This change came when a new federal pilot program was initiated by the Forest Service in Washington, D.C.
The vision starts at the top. The vision for the Ochako started with the chief's visit, coming to this forest and having everybody talk to him on a one-to-one basis. And that was the dramatic event for this forest, to have the chief visit Prineville, USA, and ask if you'd like to play the game of loosening up the system and provide people more freedom to carry out their work.
But seeing the pilot test approach, embrace change, embrace experimentation, and constantly keep improving and looking at the job you're doing and how you can do it better is just the future mode of operation of the Forest Service.
How do you keep the Congress off your back, or whoever the regulators are back in Washington, when you make what to me is a thoughtful speech and saying, let the troops closest to the front line execute the job? I mean, is that a tug that occurs too?
Well, some, but we were surprised by the outcome when we took the broad philosophical approach and we actually ask our employees, what is it that's getting in your way of getting the job done? What's stifling creativity, innovation out here? Do you know who was responsible for 70% of it? The Forest Service. It was the managers in the Forest Service. Only 30% is due to the executive branch above the Forest Service and Congress. And so I think before federal managers start griping and complaining about Congress, they better worry about the 70% that's on their back that they can do something about.
Prior to the pilot, we relied very heavily on our manuals and handbooks, and it was very easy for some managers to deal with that in that if it wasn't in the manual, it was an easy answer of no. Now, no is the forbidden word.
The more rules you write, though, of course, then you're headed back towards a bureaucracy. You know, as soon as you write a rule, people stop thinking. Well, can't do that anymore, might as well stop thinking. So we didn't write a lot of rules.
In fact, they broke the rules. When it came to money, they put it all into one big bucket.
When the money came down in the little boxes, it put the employees in the boxes. You know, 27 different slices to protect and maintain. You know, the implication is that our resource people don't know what they're doing, don't know what jobs to do, can't identify the priorities, so they put us in little boxes. You know, you're a forester, you're a range person, you're a wildlife person, work until that box is empty, and then we'll find something else for you to do. You know, no consideration at all for the job that needed to be done, or for the fact that one box might be able to save money and be done, but you could never hand it to the guy in the next box who was starving. So, you know, getting that bucket, and the chief starting out that way so that nobody could take that away from us. I want you to operate from a bucket, you make up the rules. You know, that was an enormous breakthrough for our people.
The rules changed on the range as well.
Simple things that I consider are like modifying a permit, like making a routine change from cows and calves to steers and heifers. In the old days, we used to have to send it to the supervisor's office to get approved, and sometimes it may never get approved. I'm making the decisions now, and I'm closer to the problem, and I think that that's the way it ought to be. The livestock grazing can be used as a tool in working to improve the condition of the range. Then we work with the permittees to make sure that the grazing is not a detriment to the resource, but it actually, if properly managed grazing, can help the resource.
Well, we asked one guy, he said, well, where's your quality control? And he says, tapped himself on the chest, he says, I'm quality control because I have time to go look at what's happening on the ground. And I think that's the right answer. It wasn't guaranteed because we had a plan. It wasn't guaranteed because we had a review process. It was guaranteed because the expert eyes were on the ground.
The Forest Service has always overseen the logging operations of its resources. It's an often complex and difficult process.
It's a contract partnership. The timber industry, the Forest Service developed the contract together.
Monitoring process allows the Forest Service to ensure that the terms of the contract, which is mutually agreed upon, are enforced.
It has always been the job of the Forest Service to make sure the timbering operation is done right.
Significant, it's far enough. This looks like an okay job to me right now.
And when it's done right, the Forest Service knows it's important to reward its employees.
There had always been an awards program in the Forest Service, and one of the things that seemed to keep it from being used was that you had to have approval from a whole big long chain of people.
This is Tyler Grew, a forestry technician and creator of a revolutionary award that bears his name. The coveted Grew Award allows employees to recognize each other's achievements. It's not management rewarding employees, it's employees rewarding each other.
So Susan, I understand that anybody can give anybody else the Grew Award, is that right?
No, that's right. Everybody on the forest is given one Grew Award a fiscal year to give to anybody on the forest that does something special for them, sustained performance, something along that lines.
And you've got a wall of them full of them.
I've got several. I'm very proud of them. I've gotten cash awards before for $300 and $500, but these mean more to me than that because they came from the people I work with.
And it got so important, in the second year, the employees said, okay, supervisors, you can have a GRU type award, but it can't be a GRU award because the GRU award is ours. Yeah. Supervisors are dying to have a GRU award because they don't like the red tape either, because they still got to fill out all the forms. So we have a supervisory GRU award.
I have a GRU Award to present this morning, and John Harkey, this GRU's for you.
Let me conclude by telling you a little bit about our journey. It started out when people would come up to me at seminars and say, Tom, why don't you do something on excellence in the public sector? To be honest, my first reaction was to snicker. Excellence in the public sector, fat chance. Then we went through the intellectualizing stage. What are the differences between the two? No profit motive, no competition, you can't hire and fire and all that sort of thing. And then we actually started to take a look. And what we found was that the essence of the miracle of Brother Rick, the essence of excellent service delivery in a city, the excellence of a Naval Air rework facility, was precisely the same thing that made for excellence in a sausage factory, in a software company, or in a retail outlet. Maybe Bob Stone at the Defense Department put it best. He said, above all, what people want is to be in charge of their part of the world. Rod Collins at the Ochako Forest said, it all comes from the heart. And that really is the point. It's about people, people at the front line, closest to the customer, empowered to get on with a job. Anarchy? No, that's not the result. No $600 ashtrays here. To the contrary, people given the chance to shine bring us efficiency and better service. Better service for the customer, who happens to be you and I, whether it's Defense Service or a well-managed national forest. But there is one difference, perhaps, between the public and the private sector that is important, and that is the people on the front line in the public sector live in a fishbowl. And there's something that you and I can do about that, and that is to encourage them to take a chance, encourage them to take risks, because only if they do will we get the public service of excellent quality that you and I demand on a day-to-day basis. There's no difference at all between that recently empowered Ford worker who with better quality cars is turning back the Japanese challenge and that frontline public sector worker. The organizations we visited know this, and like their excellent counterparts in the private sector, live by this principle of people first. Rob Mixon, Rose Washington, Ed Schlar, Brother Rick, J.C. Hansen. Are they unique? Not by a long shot. This search has taught me that the public sector is filled with people who, among other things, are turning the task of serving the public good into a real adventure in management transformation. Men, women, organizations providing models of excellence that benefit each and every one of us.